I don't think he should have been let out at all. He played the system, but I did predict that he would kill again.
On December 15, 2016, at 3:18 p.m., emergency services at Chenton railway station in England received a report of a man who had jumped in front of an N train and sustained severe injuries. The responders arrived to a horrific scene. The man, aged 64, had lost his right arm and his left hand due to the train's impact. He was quickly stabilized and taken to the hospital. The police soon identified him and went to his residence on Dartmouth Park Hill, Islington, to locate a next of kin. What they discovered there was utterly shocking. In the living room, they found a woman's lifeless body with a belt around her neck and a bloodied hammer nearby. Unbeknownst to them, the man they had just rescued was a serial killer, whose actions were unparalleled in British crime history. Angela Bess, aged 51, was a loving mother of 4 and a grandmother, known for her loyalty, fun-loving nature, gentleness, and generosity. Described as the heart of her family, she was always willing to help those in need. A long-time resident of Tottenham, London, she had relocated from Manchester. In 1996, while attending a City and Guilds course in furniture restoration, she met a man named Theodore Johnson. They quickly fell in love and began living together, but their relationship was turbulent. Theodore displayed controlling tendencies and physically abused Angela multiple times. Following a confrontation regarding his infidelity in September 2016, Angela came across a disturbing letter in their home. It contained Theodore's confession to murdering a previous partner. Shocked and unable to comprehend this revelation about her long-term partner, Angela chose to confront him. When she questioned him about the letter, he admitted it was true he had killed one of his past partners. But this was not his only crime. Theodore Johnson, a 64-year-old, originally from Jamaica and one of 11 siblings, had previously worked on a banana plantation. He moved to the UK in September 1980 to join his wife Yvonne, 23, with whom he had 2 sons. Initially, they settled well in Wolverhampton, with Theodore working as a car mechanic, while Yvonne labored in a factory. However, the situation dramatically shifted several months later. On a seemingly ordinary Sunday in May 1981, a noise disturbance caught the attention of their neighbor, who noticed an ambulance arrive at their apartment building. Yvonne was found critically injured after a fall from the 9th floor. Unfortunately, despite medical efforts, she succumbed to her injuries. Witness accounts soon revealed that Yvonne did not fall accidentally. She was forcefully thrown off the ledge by Theodore. Witnesses stated that during an argument about him not dressing appropriately for church, he struck her with a vase before pushing her off the balcony, where she struggled to hold on before falling 9 stories. Theodore stood idly by as she fell. He was subsequently arrested and charged with murder, awaiting trial in Birmingham prison. While incarcerated, he wrote to his neighbor, insisting that Yvonne had been abusive toward him and that he acted out of provocation. During the trial, none of the neighbors, who could provide context about the couple's dynamics, were called to testify, and their silence did not corroborate Theodore's claims of abuse. He was portrayed as a victim of domestic violence, which swayed the jury. In November 1981, he was convicted of manslaughter on grounds of provocation, receiving only a 3-year sentence. Upon his release, Theodore started a new relationship with Yvonne Bennett, with whom he had a daughter. However, Ivan's sister Janet found him controlling and tried to warn her sister about Theodore. After Yvonne moved to Holloway, London, to escape him, Theodore followed her there, continuing to exert control over her life. After learning that Theodore was dating someone else, Yvonne eventually broke up with her, but not before he began chasing her. Even after Janet went to the authorities for assistance, they mainly disregarded her concerns over Theodore's violent inclinations. In September 1992, Theodore returned to Ivan's residence, persistently trying to win her back. But while their young daughter slept nearby, he strangled Yvonne with his belt and later confessed to the crime from a phone booth. Police arrived to find the distraught toddler close to her mother's body. Theodore attempted to take his own life using a car in Barnet, which some believe was more about manipulating perceptions than genuine remorse. Upon discovering Theodore's history of violence against intimate partners, investigators anticipated a strong case for murder. However, Theodore, showing signs of mental health issues, entered a plea of guilty to manslaughter based on diminished responsibility in March 1993, and was given an indefinite hospital order instead of a prison sentence. The judge described him as not a violent person, and by September of the following year, he was permitted to leave the hospital on escorted parole. Family members of Yvonne Bennett were stunned when they spotted him outside the hospital. By mid-1995, he had begun attending a City and Guilds course, allowing him 2 days of unescorted leave after convincing hospital staff he was no longer a danger. During this course, he met Angela Best, who was unaware of his violent past. He sought a conditional discharge from the hospital, but was denied. However, after a tribunal in October 1997, he was released with the stipulation that he notifies social workers about any new relationships. He had already been in a relationship with Angela for a year without disclosing this information, successfully deceiving the authorities for nearly 2 decades. In December 2016, after Angela discovered Theodore's letter confessing to multiple murders, she promptly terminated their relationship but offered to help him if he needed it later. On December 14, 2016, she informed her daughter about her plans to assist him with a passport application at the Jamaican embassy the next day. Arriving at Theodore's apartment around 9:20 a.m. on December 15th, Angela failed to respond to her son's attempts to reach her. Though Theodore claimed help was necessary, no appointment existed. Instead, he violently assaulted her, using a dressing gown belt to strangle her and a hammer to beat her as she fought desperately to defend herself. Just hours later, at 3:18 p.m., emergency services received a report of a man jumping in front of a train at Chesson Station. Shortly thereafter, Angela's body was discovered. A post-mortem revealed she died from strangulation and blunt force trauma, having been struck 6 times with the hammer. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that Theodore had a disturbing pattern of violence, having previously killed 2 intimate partners and failed to disclose this to the authorities or Angela. During the majority of the home visits by workers from the authorities, they gave him prior notice, allowing him to hide Angela's belongings and create the impression of living alone. He had met with a social worker just days before the murder, insisting he was not in a relationship. His extensive history of control and abuse was alarming. After leaving Theodore, Angela found happiness in a new relationship, yet Theodore would not accept rejection, continuing to declare his love for her and displaying the same obsessive and controlling behaviors. A detective involved in Yvonne Bennett's investigation expressed disgust and disbelief upon learning of Theodore's 3rd murder. Following a lengthy hospital stay, he was charged with murder, but initially pled guilty to manslaughter. However, recognizing the mounting evidence against him, he changed his plea to guilty of murdering Angela Best on the first trial day at the Old Bailey. Prosecutor Mark Haywood characterized Theodore as violent and controlling, stating he would resort to murder if he felt crossed. asserting that he would rather have Angela dead than with anyone else. His lawyer claimed he wished for death and condemned himself for his actions, emphasizing the pain felt by family members. The defense also argued that the 1997 decision to release him was flawed, relying on his honesty in reporting relationships, which he repeatedly failed to do. After changing his plea, Theodore was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 26 years for a crime deemed brutal and merciless. Judge Richard Marks denounced the sustained, vicious assault on Angela Bess, highlighting that her death could have been avoided had the authorities known the truth about Theodore. Following the sentencing, Angela's sister expressed grief, stating how deeply Angela was loved by her family. Angela's son, Raphael, lamented the anguish her passing caused him, echoing the sentiments of her other son, Fabian, who felt lost without her understanding. After the conviction, the Camden and Islington NHS Trust promised a thorough, independent report about their oversight of Theodore since 2004, noting that had they known about Angela, they might have been able to protect her. The second victim's sister expressed disbelief at the revelations during the inquest, believing Ivan's life could have been saved had Theodore received a longer sentence for his first crime. Theodore Johnson later appealed his sentence, which resulted in an increase to a minimum of 30 years, ensuring he would likely remain behind bars into his 90s. Public outcry emerged when the full information about Theodore surfaced, with one of his former caregivers stating he should have never been released, asserting that, had he been incarcerated, Angela's murder would have been preventable. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.